You're listening to the Bluejay Breakdown.
Welcome back to the Bluejay Breakdown. Anna and Jacob alongside with you, talking some women's and men's hoops for Creighton. Let's start with the women's side. Green Bay, they got a little get-back game is what they called it, because Green Bay came in last year, beat that team at home. Creighton goes on the road, beats a great Green Bay team. That's an NCAA tournament team. Final score 74-52. So handled them pretty easily up in Green Bay. What did you see from that? What did you take away most?
Yeah, just a really impressive performance. Starts on the defensive end. They held Creighton shot better from three than Green Bay did from the field. So typically that's going to result in a win. That's just kind of how math works. But yeah, held Green Bay to 34.5% shooting and forced 16 turnovers. So, I mean, they were up 14-8 after one, and then just kept stretching it out the rest of the way. They were up 54-31 after three quarters. So it wasn't. I mean, the final scores, it was even less competitive than the final score indicates there. So it's a really impressive performance. Again, we saw Molly Mogensen step up.
Yep.
Led the team in scoring, 18 points, 8 of 13 from the field, 7 rebounds, 4 steals. And we've talked about how many times how good this team can be will depend on which role players step up and how much they're able to do so. And Mogensen did it in that game. You also got 17 on 50% shooting from Molly, and 15, 6 assists and 4 rebounds from Lauren Jensen there. I think probably the most noteworthy thing, though, is the best moving forward thing that came out of this, besides the win and the get back, like you said, is Allison Heathcock got out there and 8 points, 3 of 4 from the field, hit 2 threes, so put up those 10 points or those 8 points in 10 minutes. Also had 4 fouls, but is a freshman who had some setbacks in the preseason, kind of put her behind the 8 ball in terms of being ready to play. And you can see a little bit early on, she's just kind of not too certain of herself out there. So I think for her to have a game like this, to see some shots go in, to get out there and get some quality playing time, and to be rewarded for the work that she's putting in, will be good for the team moving forward. Because if Liz Gentry and Allison Heathcock can kind of progress as the season goes on and give them a little bit more depth later in the year when legs are starting to get heavy, and because we know how much the veterans, how much of a load the veterans carry on this team, that'll be big for the team down the stretch. So I think that's probably the thing that stood out to me most. Is like good for Allison to get out there and have some positive plays go her way.
How about Lauren Jensen's playmaking ability? What have you seen from her that continues to impress you?
Yeah, you look at, we know she's an absolute bucket. She can go score whenever she wants, but the last 2 games, she's got 16 assists, and had the double-double, had the 10 assists in the previous game, and then 6 in this one. And she's averaging just under 20 a game, 4.5 assists through the first 10 in the game. But this kind of speaks to the versatile player that she is, that she can control the game and dominate the game in multiple ways, where she can go, again, be that leading scorer, drop 30 if you need her to. If her teammates are rolling, she's more than happy to play the setup woman and get all her teammates involved. So I think it's just a testament to the kind of player that Lauren has become.
Yeah, and again, the Creighton schedule doesn't get too much easier from here. They play Wyoming at home, and they've been on the road for, what, a month?
Yeah,
it's felt like
that, yeah. Since the Nebraska game.
Since the Nebraska game. So it's been a while since these Blue Jays have been on their home court. So I'm sure it'll be nice to sleep in their own beds and have sort of a routine back together before they, of course, hit the road again. But Wyoming, a team that just came off a huge win over South Dakota yesterday, 79-45, went absolutely crazy from the three-point line. They had 14 three-pointers, 14 of 26, and they just lit it up all game. But the biggest challenge that Wyoming poses, Allison Ferdig, the 6'4" center, she's a senior, came back for this year and she could have gone elsewhere. She could have transferred out of the Mountain West Conference and gone somewhere else, but she decided to come back, and she's a real deal inside and will be an issue for the Blue Jays.
Yeah, she's at 18 points and just under 11 rebounds a game, almost 2 blocks a game, shooting 57% from the field. So she is going to be a formidable test for the Jays, who 8-2 now. They've won 7 straight, the last 6 away from home. So fans, if you've been having fun watching this team, if you've been able to, not all these games have been easy to watch. Yeah, if you don't have all the subscriptions, but show up to Sokol and support the team. Again, it's a really fun team to watch. So it's good to get them back at home because they're going right back on the road after that. That Wyoming, that's a big game. They need to go get this win. Like you said, the Hurrdat 6-4, we've seen kind of post players give them trouble, understandably so, with the roster construction. So Creighton's got to go out and execute their game plan against her, because it gets even tougher after that, because they're heading out to number 1 UCLA and 6'7" center Lauren Betts. So if
Hurrdat will be a good precursor to what they'll see at UCLA. Not going to be the same, but it'll help with their scheme and figuring things out.
No doubt. And as a UCLA team, 10-0, they beat South Carolina by 15 back on November 24th to end the winning streak at however many games that was. Kind of woke some people up. Obviously, it was a really good team last year. Creighton saw them in the NCAA tournament last year, 67-63 in the second round, gave them everything they could handle. But Betts had 20 and 10 in that game, and Kiki Rice, who was back, their point guard, had 24. So Creighton's familiar with this team. Obviously, Creighton's a little bit different. They had Emma Ronsick in that game, who played an important role. No longer the case, but they've got 8 players averaging over 7 points a game. It's a deep and talented team. They haven't been terribly healthy. Like, they've had different players missing games here throughout the season. But I think all their key players played last time out. They're averaging 85.5 points a game and holding teams to 53.
Jeez.
Winning by 32.5 points. And it's not like they're playing nobodies. These are high major teams, a handful of them on their schedule. And again, they beat South Carolina by 15. So Creighton's got to play their absolute best to have a chance to compete in this one. We've already seen how the trip to Kansas State went. They had somewhat similar in the Aoka Lee 6'6" center that Creighton had no answer for. So they're going to hopefully have to come up with a better game plan for Lauren Betts, because she is a problem.
Yeah, and so Wyoming UCLA will be the last 2 matchups before they fully head into conference play. So they'll open up with St. John's over there in New York and Queens. But yeah, I mean, anything left for this team besides the post presence to figure out how to stop that? Anything else you want to see from this team figure out before they really hit conference play?
I think it's just continuing to do what they do and try to get even more consistent. Try to get a few of those role players going to where I mean, it doesn't have to be one person every single time, but you need 2 or 3. You need somebody off the bench, give them a little bit. You need 2 or 3 of Mogensen and Mallory Brake there and Keani Lockett. You need at least 2 of those 3 contributing offensively, in addition to all the little things they do, in order to put up enough points to compete with the best teams they're going to see on their schedule.
All right, well, let's flip over to the men's side of things. A Saturday night loss at Alabama in Tuscaloosa, 83-75, the final. Jay's hung in there, though. Yeah. It looked grim for some runs by Alabama, but they definitely fought, and I think that shows a lot about that team, obviously, with the loss of Pop Isaacs and, some uncertainty there with injuries and illness. Yeah,
that's, if you're looking for the positive takeaways, it's absolutely that they found a way when they weren't playing their best to keep competing, to not let the game get away from them. Like we saw in the San Diego State game, obviously they didn't have Stephen Ashworth in that one, but that game got away from them, and they just couldn't find a way to stem the tide and to get themselves back into it. That wasn't the case in this one. They got themselves down 17 points, 27-10, very early in the game, where things weren't working out for them on either end. They weren't executing their defensive game plan, and then shots weren't falling at all offensively. Excuse me. So everything was going wrong. They got themselves into a big hole, and then they found a way. They started getting some stops, clawed their way back into it by halftime, cut that thing down to 6 several different times, couldn't quite get over the hump. Yeah. They finally got down to 4 in the final minute. Jackson McAndrew hit a 4-point play to kind of give them a chance, but that was as close as they got. So, but I mean, that's no shame. I think KenPom had it as Alabama winning by 9. So Creighton slightly covered the KenPom line. So it wasn't it was somewhat encouraging result. Like, obviously you want to go out and win every game, and had they done a few things better, they would have given themselves a chance to really secure a huge victory. But they weren't able to get it done. I think the things moving forward, you got Ashworth and Kalkbrenner. every single day it's going to have to be those guys putting up big numbers, and they did. Ashworth didn't shoot well from three, but had 20 and 9, 9 assists to go with his 20 points, got to the free throw line. And Kalkbrenner, again, despite all the double teams and defensive focus on him, had 18 points, 7 boards, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and was once again just so incredibly impactful defensively. There's some stretches where Alabama was able to take advantage of Creighton's defense, and they weren't able to execute their game plan like they wanted to. But once they settled in, Kalkbrenner impacted so many shots around the basket. But the key is going to be Jemiah Neal. And Greg McDermott talked a little bit about him after practice or before practice, leading into this game, and how the key for him is consistency and trying to find that, because like throughout his time here, it's kind of been up and down. Like there's some days where he looks fantastic and other days where he really struggles. And now with the Isaacs injury, they can't afford to have many of those struggle days. And unfortunately, this was far more the struggle than the good day. He had 13 points on 5 of 14 shooting, and had 3 assists and 5 turnovers. So it's going to be tough to win against a really good team when you get that kind of negative production out of him. They did get, I think, 2 guys in particular gave them a spark. It's Jackson McAndrew, who the only guy that was hitting threes in this game. He finished with 16, went 5 of 8 from 3, including the 4-point play. I hit 2 threes in the final 90 seconds to give them a chance going into the very end of that game. And then Jason Green, who continues to, he was the one that was struggling to find his place early on in the season. We talked about it. Wasn't impacting the box score at all. His minutes, won that starting job in the offseason, lost it after 1 game. Minutes weren't really productive. Now he had 6 points and 5 rebounds, assists, a steal, and a block in 25 minutes, and they won his minutes by 7. So Creighton was +7 in his 25 minutes on the court in the 8-point loss there. So that's a spot where it's good to see him start to get comfortable and find ways that he can contribute to this team, because they absolutely need it. As shorthanded as they are right now, they need some guys to start stepping up, and this was a good sign from him in that area. Yeah,
I think Jason Green just makes his team better when he's on the floor, at least at this point. Maybe that wasn't the case early on when he lost that starting job, but I think his hustle really stands out. The rebounds he can get, I think he's one of the most active players on defense too.
And they're starting to find him within the flow of the offense. He's finding opportunities to get some quick seals for some easy buckets, running the floor. So he's finding a way to be impactful in the scoring column, in addition where he's not taking a ton of shots or whatever, but he's taking advantage when the defense gives him a chance to get an easy bucket and the teammates are finding him. So that's big. That was early on. It seemed like he didn't really know where to be on the court. Mixing between the 3 and the 4, getting used to playing with these new guys. Obviously, he was kind of out of the lineup for a bit there right before the season started. So it's good to see him start to find ways that he can contribute to this team.
Jays will definitely need him. And now the gauntlet of Big East play begins. So on Wednesday, this Creighton team will go at Georgetown, 5:30 p.m. tip in Washington, D.C. What kind of challenges does this Georgetown team pose?
Yeah, just before we get into the Big East, just kind of putting a bow on the non-conference. So saying 7-4. Had the win over Kansas. That'll hold up well. It's a top 10 team in KenPom. And the loss to Nebraska, which is not the great loss. All the other losses, they'll age well. Right now, Nebraska, you need them to kind of improve to avoid that being an outside the top 50 loss there. So, the non-conference wasn't what they wanted going in, but you knew how tough it was going to be. And then with the injuries they've suffered, I think they've treaded water throughout the non-conference. They got they got the win they need in Kansas. The final win-loss record isn't what you wanted, so now they got to make up some ground in the Big East, especially knowing that the Big East isn't going to offer them that many opportunities to win, to get quad 1 wins and to get really impressive resume wins. That Kansas one was big for that reason. So yeah, now they go into Big East play. Like you said, they start with Georgetown, who is 8-2 start the season, but the 2 losses are the only top 100 teams they've played. So all 8 wins have come against teams outside the top 100 in KenPom. So they haven't really beat anybody with a pulse. That being said, they do have some good players who went out and had a good offseason in the portal. Jay Epps is their leading scorer. He's leading 4 guys in double figures, 15.5 a game, shooting 36% from 3. Thomas Sorber is one of the best freshmen in the Big East. Their big man there, averaging just under 16 a game, over 8 boards, almost 2 blocks, shooting 57% from the field. Micah Peavy is having a great season. 13 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, shooting 36% from 3. And then Malik Mack, another impactful transfer for them at point guard, 12 points, 4.5 rebounds, just over 4 assists, also shooting 38% from 3. And they're good on the offensive glass. So it's gonna test Creighton. They've their attention detail has to be good in the scouting report. Georgetown doesn't have a lot of depth. So if you can kind of lock in on their key guys there, you'll have a chance to keep them in check. And then you got to make sure that if they can secure the defensive glass, there'll be chances to run against this team.
Before we wrap up, do you think that Creighton's at-large bid to the tournament is at risk at all right now?
Yeah, I mean, right now you've got one truly noteworthy win. Notre Dame is okay. Like, that's what they were supposed to do. Missing out on that Texas A&M game, that kind of hurts from in that regard. UNLV is they're also outside the top 100 in Ken Palm. So right now they don't have enough. They are going to need a good Big East season, especially because the thing is they're no DePaul level bad teams, Georgetown level bad teams in the Big East this year. Like, those teams have improved, but the level as a whole isn't that high in the league.
I mean, the best wins you can get this year: Marquette, UConn.
Yeah.
That's
Still,
probably
and UConn didn't have a
Providence.
great offseason, because you get Xavier, maybe they turned into something. St. John's, maybe they turned into something, but none of those teams really had great non-conference slates to kind of boost their standing. So, Creighton's got work to do in the conference, but if they have a strong season, they'll be okay. That Kansas one will get them in as long as they have a good enough league play. But we're looking at 7 wins. You got to get to that 20 win area. So you need a 13 in games in conference to get to that 20.
Yeah.
That's it's certainly doable, but it doesn't leave you a lot of room for slip ups.
Sure.
So that's where the consistency comes into play, where you got to take care of business and then get steal 1 or 2 from the top of the conference, like you said.
Yeah, because we've seen it almost in the opposite fashion. I think 2 years ago, Creighton lost 6 in a row, ended up going into the Elite 8, but they had those impressive non-conference wins prior that helped them out a lot. So it's kind of a little bit different of a battle this year for them.
Yeah, like their strength of schedule will be good, but you still need to get the wins.
Yeah.
So like the Texas A&M loss doesn't hurt you. I said that San Diego State, I think that'll age well. They'll end up being a good team. So, and even Nebraska, I think they'll be solid. Again, I don't know that like they're going to be a huge, like they're going to be a bubble team as well. So it's not, they don't have anything truly damaging on their resume yet, but they only have the one true
staple
kind of, So there's still some work to do. Like you mentioned the Georgetown, then their home opener in the league is Villanova, who, like, that's a game they can't afford to drop. They lost to Villanova at home last year, obviously on the Doug jersey retirement day, kind of
spoiled it.
Yeah, spoiled that one. But it's a Nova team that's 7-4. They're 51st in KenPom. Really good offensively, really bad defensively, relative, like high major relative. They're 1-1 against the top 25 and have 3 losses to teams outside the top 100 in KenPom. So Eric Dixon has been the best player in the Big East thus far, probably in the mix with Cam Jones right there, averaging almost 26 a game. Don't have a whole lot outside of Muga Poplar, transfer from Miami's having a good year. Jameer Brickus at the point guard spot. Those are kind of the 3 guys that you have to worry about, and not a whole lot outside of those 3. But it's a team that is, like I said, really struggle on the defensive end. So Creighton's got to find a way to kind of keep Dixon in check. Can't let him go off for 30 plus, which he's already done multiple times this year. And then they got to be able to take advantage of their defensive failings, because this is one of those games where, again, you can't afford to let this game slip. With a guy like Dixon, that team is talented enough if you don't come ready to play.
Yeah.
And that'll be Creighton's test in the Big East play now. Again, as shorthanded as they are, their margin for error is slim. And that's what Greg McDermott talked about after the Alabama loss. He talked about beforehand. That's kind of just the reality of where this program is right now with the injury situation they've gone through, losing one of your best players. You just can't afford to have guys show up and having a bad day against quality teams. So it's the rest of the season is going to be a test in consistency for Creighton and how many guys can show up and do their job on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. So once again at Georgetown, then they'll see Villanova and St. John's at home before the new year. We'll talk to you after the new year. So in 2025 is the next time we'll drop an episode and we'll recap those 3 games, see how the Jays are faring in conference play. But that'll be all from Bluejay Breakdown. Thanks so much for joining. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.